When you need mealtime inspiration, it's worth shopping Baker's, where you'll find over 30,000 mouth-watering choices that excite your inner foodie. And no matter what tasty choice you make, you'll enjoy our everyday low prices, plus extra ways to save, like digital coupons worth over $600 each week. You can also save up to $1 off per gallon at the pump with fuel points. More savings and more inspiring flavors make shopping Baker's worth it every time. Baker's, fresh for everyone. Fuel restrictions apply.
And welcome back to a brand new episode of the Pens Bag Mailbag. This will be part one for this week. We had quite a deluge of questions, a return of the legend himself, Brian, back in the ats on the Twitter post. So we will get to those here in a second. But before we start asking the questions and giving you the answers across the country, for me, I guess technically, or the microphone, however you want to say it, is, of course, my co-host, Snail in Seattle. Snail, a lot of good hockey this weekend, beautiful weather. So how are you holding up there in the Pacific Northwest?
Holding up good. Spring is here. I'm glad that we're turning the page on winter hockey, playoff hockey. We've started to get a little bit better. This second round has really been delivering the entertainment and the action. So life's good out here. How are things out in Western Pennsylvania, Robbie?
Well, for at least today, they are beautiful. It is a perfect spring day, mid 70s, sun shining, birds chirping. Just one of those perfect spring days. We'll see how long it lasts, but today is one of the days you can't complain about.
Yeah, dude, I feel you. We had a day over the weekend that hit 81 degrees, and I was
All
not
right.
prepared for that. But
Yeah.
I'm embracing the summer this year. Is it muggy over there yet?
Not yet.
When does the mugginess start to hit in Western PA?
Generally June. You can get a day that'll pop up in May, depending on uh, the weather and what's coming through. But generally, June, July, August are the muggiest of the months. That's when the temperature starts to peak above a more consistent 80, 85 degrees, and the kind of wet moisture starts to roll in. So we're still a little ways out from that. So I'm going to enjoy that before the humidity rolls in and makes life a tad bit more miserable.
I assume much like out here in the Pacific Northwest, but probably more so out there, fall and spring are like your like perfect
Yeah,
seasons, right? That's where
absolutely. Yep,
it's still pleasant out, but you don't have that like humidity and that just like sogginess in the air.
absolutely. Yeah, spring and fall are the two premier months if for weather. Just it's nice and crisp. You can get days that range between um, 75 and 65. The colder nights are what really help too, and generally most of the moisture goes away, which makes it much more tolerable, even on the warmer days.
Well, right on. Yeah, I guess we'll just enjoy the spring weather while we can. And yeah, thanks to everyone for showing out for the mailbag again. It truly means a lot. And like Brian said, I just have to parrot what he said. It's nice to have kind of our like little. He really galvanizes the mailbag comments, and it's good to see him
Mm-hmm.
back.
Yep.
I can't remember if he's already been there or not, but talk about humidity. He'll be in Florida soon, so
Yeah.
um, Robbie, have you been watching some of these playoff games happening?
Yeah. Absolutely. It's been very entertaining. A couple of good games, some questionable officiating as well, but overall, I think we've gotten some good hockey out of this second round, and we're getting now close to some teams can start to wrap up these series, especially in the East. But um, no, I've been entertained.
We'll have probably an episode where we dedicate it maybe more to just like talking strictly playoff hockey.
Yeah,
But just quickly, just for banter's sake, who's been the biggest surprise for you in the second round?
probably Vancouver. I really didn't know what to expect against a high-powered Edmonton team with a third-string goaltender, but they've acquitted themselves about as well as anybody else in this round, to be honest. I'd throw Carolina in there as well as maybe a disappointment or a surprising disappointment. I thought they were going to be tougher for the Rangers. I really thought that was. I even picked Carolina to win that series. I might have picked the Rangers in 7. I did not expect there to be a sweep scenario. Now they did win one, but I didn't expect them to be in a be cleaned out like that, like the Rangers have. Now the Rangers again, 2 overtime goals, but just they seem to always find a way to kind of just claw into them games, even when Carolina has the momentum. But yeah, I'd say the Hurricanes is like a surprising disappointment, and the Canucks as more of um, a, a good surprise. I thought they were going to have trouble keeping up with that offense, but everything's worked for them, and they've been playing very well. Now they, as of this recording, have a 2-1 series lead, so anything can happen. They're still a wide open series, but definitely a little more surprising than I was expecting.
Yeah, I agree with you. That's where I would go to. I would say that my like the shocker for me is that Vancouver Edmonton series. I can't believe Vancouver pulled one out in Edmonton, and it got a little nasty there, and you can see that the maybe the Rick Tocchet effect. I mean, Carson Soucy's kind of a prick to play against anyways. He doesn't need Rick Tocchet to be a
Yeah.
prick. And Ian Cole kind of has that as well going for him, but uh, for them to win one in Edmonton, I was pretty shocked at that, and I didn't know what Vancouver was going to deliver in the playoffs this year. Kind of, this is their first year back in it, but they look like they belong there, and I'm pretty I'm pretty stoked for them actually. I'm kind of the must watch series for me so far has just been Stars Avalanche, but now
Mm-hmm.
Vancouver, the way that they're playing against the high powered offense in Edmonton and really getting in their kitchen and making things difficult, it's must watch as well. So, anyways, yeah, just curious. Some really entertaining games. That Boston Florida series is turning into just a muck fest. There's some hard feelings between both clubs there. But yeah, good stuff, fun stuff right now in the playoffs.
Absolutely.
All right, Robbie. Well, we got some questions to get to here. Now I'm going to hit you with one right off the top ropes from Brian. And so Brian's obviously been watching some playoff hockey because his question here is he says here, I think Jack Roslovic would be a great add this summer if we could get him. We tried to get him a few years back before he got traded to Columbus. He was in Winnipeg, and he's kept tabs on him since. So he thinks he could do some damage on maybe a third line with Lars Eller and Valtteri Puustinen. What do you think about that?
Yeah, Jack Roslovic. It's a guy that I've seen kind of connected with the Penguins in the past, and it just never happened when he was with the um, he was with the Jets and the Blue Jackets for a while, and he plays a role that the Penguins absolutely need to improve on. A great depth player, um, good on the puck, good possession stats, good analytics, but he also comes in uh, for what his role is as a good. Uh, he sticks out in the box score as well. Puts up good box score numbers. He'll contribute points. He'll contribute on both ends of the ice. I think that he's definitely someone that if he would not be re-signed before the free agency period in New York, could absolutely or should be someone that the Penguins look at as not even just a stopgap 1 year guy, but as a multi-year player. Because if the Penguins are serious about extending this window as long as possible, you're going to need guys like him on this roster. So I think he'd be fairly cheap, or at least cheap in terms of the role he plays. I don't think you'd have to overpay for him, but a minor overpay for a guy like him is better than a minor overpay for a guy like Jeff Carter. Um, he fits what the Penguins want to do. I think he'd be absolutely perfect in Pittsburgh, and I've seen people discuss that possibility already. So, um, fingers crossed, if the opportunity presents itself, it's something they can do.
That Rangers team, you got to think that they're probably not going to sign him, because the only reason I think they went out and got him was because Philip Hedl, their third line center, um, was injured and he's been out. I think he played one game in the playoffs the other day, and then they took him back out of the lineup. But he's a great player. That Philip Heedle's a good. He was one of their kind of rebuilding draft picks when they kind of took a step back and weren't making the playoffs there for a bit when they sent out that letter. But they got Wenberg too, who was in Columbus and then Seattle for a bit. I think he's like a winger who can kind of play center. Same with Jack Roslovic. Jack Roslovic, I feel like he kind of reminds me a little bit of like an Evan Rodriguez or a Max Domi. Kind of versatile middle six, can play the center position, can play the wing. Has that offensive creativity, which thrives in a Penguins lineup. He's kind of a slippery guy. He's from, and I'm all for people coming back home. He's not from Pittsburgh, but he's from Ohio. So I'm just like, that's kind of the same thing, right? Pretty close. Kind of like a JT Miller. I'd be all for a Jack Roslovic coming back to, what would you, that's not the Rust Belt, is it? Is that, it's called, is it the Midwest or what?
Where at?
Where you got Ohio, Pittsburgh?
It kind of gets, it's like Appalachia. I mean, there's kind of a debate over what area Pittsburgh falls into, but Columbus is definitely more Midwest. Rust Belt, yeah, we could qualify as Rust Belt as well. There's kind of debate over what exactly is the proper term. So you can kind of go with whatever you feel comfortable with.
Well, yeah, kind of back closer to home. Let's just say that. But
yeah.
Jack Roslovic, great player.
All right. Question from Brian here, or more of a statement, but the T-shirt design is on the front. It says "piss and vinegar," alluding to Snail's catchphrase that he uses very often on the podcast. And on the back, it says "every day of the week and twice on Sunday." Brian says print it up, but he wants the royalties.
That's awesome. Yeah, Robbie and I maybe this summer we'll have a chat. Maybe we'll entertain the idea of what the logistics are and maybe some limited run merch. I guess we'd have to. Probably couldn't do anything too big. I think we had like small talks about this in the beginning when I first hopped on, and then it just kind of was like, yeah, we'll put it on the back burner. But yeah, if there's even a slight market for that out there, if any of you listeners have any interest in any sort of merch, just like shoot us what you guys kind of like. Is it t-shirts, is it hats, is it koozies, like little things like that? Like I said, Robbie and I, we haven't really talked about that at all, but like if there is like a somewhat of a desire for that out there, let us know, because we could have those conversations. And yeah, piss and vinegar every day of the week, twice on Sundays. Definitely some terms that get thrown around, especially from me on this pod. So yeah, let us know, and we'll have some discussions behind the scene. You never know when a merch drop might happen.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to question number 3 here, coming from our good pal Brian again. Brian says here that he needs Robbie's help on how to get a renegade dog to Snail so he can try one. I still haven't gotten a chance to consume one myself yet, but if I end up at a Bucco's game, I will forego my normal Quaker steak wings for this Frankenstein monstrosity. Robbie, what in the hell is he talking about?
So, at PNC Park, where the Pirates play this year, there was a new menu item introduced called the Renegade Dog, and it's a hot dog. It makes sense. So we will have to. So it's actually, I've made it at home. It is not that difficult. Snail may have some hurdles because he's a vegan, but all you'll need is your hot dog of your choice, whatever you want to go with. Snail, I know that you have vegan options out there that you eat. Then you need some kind of, this might be the hardest part, some kind of vegan pulled pork or pulled brisket.
Not that hard. Had that plenty of times.
All right. So that goes on top of the dog. And then you need pierogies, which I know you've asked about. I don't know if you can get them out there. And then you can top it with, if you want some kind of barbecue sauce, or pickles and onions.
All right, so I had to Google this thing, because when you said brisket on top of a hot dog, I'm like, hell yeah, that's so like America. And then when you said pierogies, I was like, this is a Pittsburgh thing. This sounds like a Pittsburgh, because you guys are big on pierogies out there, right? You guys are big Polacks out there, Poles.
A lot of Poles, yes.
So I'm looking at it right now. That's like a 3-course dinner in a bun.
Oh yeah, it's a lot. Me and a friend kind of made a version of them for the NFL draft, and we had a watch party. And
Nice.
it's a lot. It's a mess, kind of. I don't know if it would be quite enjoyable at a baseball game where your seating options are your lap, but it's a lot. Again, it combines a lot of what I like, so it works. But it's one is enough. Let's put it that way.
Well, I'm looking at this. It looks like a foot-long sub in a box. It looks like
Yeah,
it comes
so
in a shoebox practically.
yeah, so we didn't use foot long hot dogs. We just used like sub rolls with like a Nathan's hot dog bun length, nothing, just like a typical hot dog, and just put the pulled pork on top, and then everything else. So we didn't go the full foot long, but it's good. It was good. I enjoyed it. So if that's something you're into, definitely try it. Because it's something that can definitely be made at home. You don't have to go to the ballpark and to enjoy it. So
Well, I'm on Reddit right now looking at some photos of people that have gotten the Renegade dog. This rings a little bit of a bell just thinking it, but this looks like a beautiful place to take in a ball game. PNC.
oh yeah, it's rated one of the top ballparks in the nation
Is
every
it?
year. It's beautiful. Yeah.
It looks awesome. It looks so I love the ballpark layout here with the bridge in the background and the cityscapes. And this guy is just holding a shoebox with a foot long hot dog covered in brisket and pierogies and pickles and
It's a lot.
it's quite a sight. It's very American to me. I'm like, it makes
Oh,
me
yeah.
feel patriotic a little
Yes,
bit. I'm like,
yes.
this is a very American-esque photo I'm looking at
It
here,
is.
and it makes me
And
damn proud.
and you know that this podcast is a very pro hot dog podcast.
Oh yeah. Big condiment podcast too. So
Oh yeah.
this hot dog is 90% condiments. So
Yeah, the hot dog's like the least amount of protein on this Frankenstein monster, as Brian said.
I don't know if the Pirates will be playing baseball in the fall. I think you guys are maybe hoping for that with this Paul Skeens fella that I'm hearing a lot about.
Mhm.
But wouldn't it be something to take in a? I got to come out for a game. I got to see a Pirates game.
Oh yeah.
I mean, even if they suck, that park just looks like a good time.
Oh, it is. It is.
Well, that's sick. Yeah. So Brian says here he hasn't had one yet. Brian, if you get one, you need to you need to show us, like, take a video
absolutely.
of yourself trying to eat this thing.
Absolutely. All right. Moving on here, back to Snail here with another question from Brian. Brian says, I've let Jesse Marshall talk me into wanting Consta Hellenius. He has this to say about him. NHL motor, A double plus, off puck A double plus off puck movement, proactive in all three zones, unbelievable forward checker, plays significantly larger than his frame in puck battle situations. Seems like a guy we could use.
Yeah, so I guess this guy, he's 18 years old. He's playing in the in Liga over there in Finland, which is the third ranked league in Europe, which would make it what, the fifth ranked league in the world, probably behind the AHL and the NHL. Playing for Jukurit Mikkeli.
Okay.
51 games, 14 goals, 21 assists, 10 penalty minutes. He's 5'11". Penguins love an undersized guy. Penguins have never shied away from adding an undersized guy, but he is 18. Maybe he's still got a couple of growth plates that haven't fully grown yet. Yeah, man. I mean, from what I've read, the little that I know of this Consta Helenius, which is just an awesome name.
Yeah, it is a great name.
Is a great name. I mean, the Penguins have pretty bare cupboards. I'll take anything. I was just telling Robbie, the Finns, I feel like since they tried again with Kasperi Kapanen, I don't know about the Finns, but I really like Puljujärvi and I really like Puustinen. If you have a couple, and they just signed Puustinen. I don't know if we talked about that yet or not. But Dubas gave Puustinen what, 2 years?
2 years, yep.
Sure. Get another Finn over here, and it could be, we got the Swedes covered, and we'll have the Finns, and they can have their own little camps within the Penguins, and
Yep.
why not? But shoots right, centerman, good along the walls if he's fast. I mean, that he'll probably do pretty well in the NHL. Those traits. The only thing though is Robbie is the physicality. I think in the European leagues you can have skill and you can have talent and speed, but it's totally different when you have people with the builds of like a Foligno, Marcus Foligno, or something,
Yeah.
trying to take your head off while you have the puck. But you're seeing now with the way the game is played that Europeans are having a little bit of an easier time with their game transferring to the North American style. So, hell, why not? I'll keep an eye on this heinous Hellenus. Let's call him heinous Hellenus, and we'll see what happens. All right, moving on from that. Let's see. Brian's asking here, how are we feeling with giving up our 24 pick to San Jose to finish the Carlson deal? Brian says that he's just glad that the deal is finished, and he still has hope that the Canes can maybe pull off an upset, and we'll get that Canes first pick. But if we do get the Canes first pick in this hypothetical, who are some players in the 13-14 pick range, I believe? Or no, that was the San Jose pick.
Yeah.
If they do get the Canes hypothetical first round pick, who are some players to target? And I didn't see where I'm assuming in the bottom, bottom 10.
Well, yeah, if they make the Cup final, they would have pick like 31 or something.
31
like that.
even. Yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah, I mean, the odds of that happening right now are very slim, as we know, with the situation currently in Carolina being what it is between the Rangers and Hurricanes. How do I feel about giving up the first round pick to St. Louis or San Jose? I mean, you had to give up something. You couldn't just dump bad contracts. It's a mid-round pick, obviously. I don't feel really much about it at all because this draft is not as deep as last year's or even next year's. This is kind of the murky middle, I guess, in terms of talent compared to what's coming and what we just saw. If this would have been last year and they would have missed out on a talent like Braden Yeager, who is currently just absolutely lighting it up in juniors in their playoff series, I'd probably sting a little bit more. But so that gets that deal done. I don't foresee the Penguins getting a first round pick unless Carolina pulls off a miracle just to get by the Rangers, and then they'd have to get by likely the Florida Panthers in round 2 or round in the conference final. But hey, never say never until they're eliminated. They're still alive. Players to look at, honestly, at that point in the draft, in the first round, it's basically throwing darts at a dartboard. You pick somebody, maybe even go best available, and hope that it works out. But not a super deep draft. If they don't get this first round pick, they will have 2 second round picks, which isn't going to be too much different than what you would get at pick 31 anyway. So, yeah, I don't see Carolina pulling this off and helping the Penguins take another step toward a first round pick. But it is what it is. Carolina, that's on you.
I got 2 names for you here. And like you said, Robbie, I'm not trying to, I never played competitive hockey, so I'm not really one to talk. But if you're picking 30, 25, 30, 31 in a draft that isn't really that deep, the difference between that and like a third round pick making the NHL, like it's not far off, the percentages. So, but I'm from Seattle. I'm a big WHL guy. I love the way that these players from the Dub are prepared for the rigors of an NHL schedule. The physicality's there. They're used to the travel. A lot of great players, a lot of Stanley Cup winners played in the WHL. And when you're that late in the draft, I got 2 names for you. I got one in Ryder Ritchie. He's a center, but he can play right wing, and he plays for Prince Albert right now. He's 6 foot, might grow a little bit. And then the other name I got for you is this guy, Charlie Ellick. He's 6'3", 190 pounds. He's a right shot D. He plays for the Brandon Wheat Kings. Got some decent size to him, a right shot D. even if he's not a Letang or a Carlson puck moving guy, you always need big defensemen, and right shot Ds are always a commodity in this league. Um, Look at a guy like Jack St. Ivany. This guy's like even if he could play like a Jack St. Ivany type role
Yeah.
with with that right shot and be more of a, you don't always need, even when you draft the best available. That's one way to go at it. But if you can draft, if you're looking for specifics, you can draft people based on the projection that you just need a shutdown guy. You need a guy that knows how to shut down offense, whether he's a forward or a defensive minded stay at home D. Those are good too, because you always need those. And if you can draft those in house and have them on an entry level deal, it's great for a team like the Penguins, who always seem to bolster. Well, since before Carlson, it's always money's going to the top six. So,
Yeah.
Charlie Ellick and Ryder Ritchie, couple names for you to check out if the Canes can pull off a massive upset against the Rangers and make it to not only the Eastern Conference final, but they'd have to make the Stanley Cup final, right? They don't have to win; they just need to make it there.
Just make it. Yep.
Right. Okay.
All right. Again from Brian here. Couldn't highly recommend watching Saving Sakic on ESPN Plus enough. The Rangers did everything that was within the rules, but to me, in a shady way. If the offer sheet ended up in New York's favor, just think how the two franchises would have been altered.
Have you seen Saving Sakic?
I have not. So this is, I'm gonna have to go with Brian's recommendation here.
I haven't seen it yet either. I'm holding off on watching. I have a couple hockey-esque documentary type things, that included, that I'm saving because we got playoff hockey right now. And once it gets to like, dude, think about think about July 25th in the summer. There's no hockey. It's so dry for hockey. I need to save these things for when I can only watch so many Penguins games on YouTube or on ESPN's archives and go watch old Penguins games to scratch that itch for competitive hockey.
Yeah.
I need to save. I'm saving this for probably right after the Stanley Cup final, maybe a couple days after. And have a couple beers and throw that on and watch it. But I've heard nothing but good things. Brian said, I like Brian talking about how it sounds like they did everything that they could, but he's essentially saying it sounded greasy. Dude, these GMs, they're like politicians. Oh, yeah. I mean, like, look at what Vegas does with the cap circumvention they do every year. I mean, they're doing everything within the rules, but you still feel cheated. You feel like it's greasy. And I mean, it's not like, if anything, back then it was more the Wild West than it is now. And
yeah,
I mean, I'm not super surprised by that. Are you, Robbie?
No, I mean, yeah, I mean, you had the Canes and the Montreal Canadiens going at it a few years ago with offer sheets. You had the Flyers tried to offer sheet Shea Weber that one time.
Yep.
You don't see it often, and it's all within the CBA rule. Like nothing. Again, back in when this would have been going on with SAC, it was obviously a different time. But, I mean, the restricted free agency is something that you just don't see used, and it probably should be leveraged more. But, yeah, I mean, you're going to – in this – when there's so much parity in the NHL that when it's this competitive, GMs have to do literally everything in their power to get even the slightest edge. So, I mean, yeah. And – yeah, take your shot. Even if you ruffle some feathers, who really cares? The old boys club is slowly dying. So the sooner the better. But yeah, I mean, if you have the opportunity to take advantage and get a slight edge, you have to kind of run with it and take a risk.
Totally. I would love to be a GM. I would make no friends. It's easier said than done, but offer sheets, I'd be off every year. I'd be looking who's a prime target to offer sheet, just for knowledge sake. But yeah, Brian will report back once I watch it. I'm sure Robbie will too. Maybe we'll try to sync that up. Maybe we could talk about that in the summertime. Maybe we could watch it and make an episode about talking about it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. Yeah, once we get some content drought, we'll have to try to find stuff to fill it, and that could definitely be one of them.
Yep. But until then, we will save the Saving Sakic talk until later in the summer, and we'll move on to another question from our pal Brian. He says here, he thinks that the ultimate get to replace Reardon, and I agree with this, I think Robbie does too, would be Bruce Boudreau. But I don't know if he wants to coach again. So what about Jay Woodcroft? Where are you at, Robbie, with hiring a guy like former Edmonton Oilers bench boss Jay Woodcroft?
So I don't think it's that Bruce Boudreau doesn't want to coach again. I think it's he wants to be a head coach again. And again, if he would be okay with stepping into that role um, and taking that job, then I think Boudreau would be a fantastic hire. Woodcroft is a name I've seen tossed around um, since the opening has become available in Pittsburgh, and I think that it would be a good hire. I think it'd be better than um, some of the other names like Sheldon Keefe that's been tossed around. Boudreaux would be my dream hire, I think, just because of his offensive reputation. But Woodcroft's another I definitely look out for. Hopefully, here within the next week or so, we do get some more clarity on that. But as of nothing, you really haven't heard anything about guys that have been interviewed or anyone like that. So it'll be interesting to see where they keep going with this because it's been almost 2 weeks now since the Reardon news broke. So you have to think that Kyle Dubas and Mike Sullivan are talking to candidates, but until then, the job remains open. But Boudreaux or Woodcroft would definitely be two names on top of my list, with Boudreaux probably being my preferred candidate if he would want that job.
So, dude, just quickly on the coaching topic, doesn't seem those New Jersey Mike Sullivan to New Jersey rumors have died quickly.
Yeah.
With the replacement of Reardon, he was technically, I mean, he ran the power play, but he was the assistant coach, was he not?
Yes.
So we all know that Mike Sullivan's a hell of a coach, and we can sing his praises. We can criticize him for what we've seen as fans for a number of years now. He's sort of a lightning rod at this point in his tenure with the Penguins. But if you're getting somebody to replace Reardon to help run the power play with that offensive mind, if you're making that hire, if you're Kyle Dubas, are you putting someone in there in case Sullivan shits the bed that they would take his spot next?
I think that's definitely a possibility. Or you hire someone for the Wilkes-Barre job with that idea as well. So I think it could be either or. But yeah, I absolutely think that you would hire someone with that possibility in mind.
And Woodcroft and Bruce Boudreau, I mean, I would take either of those guys. Like if Sullivan had gotten fired this year, Woodcroft or Boudreau would be two names I wouldn't be mad at if they were on a short list of potential candidates. Would you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Woodcroft and Boudreau both have a resume as NHL head coaches and a decent one at that. But I think they'd be definitely two of the more, if they were hiring for a head coach, would definitely be two of the more popular names out there.
Agreed.
All right. Sticking with Brian here. Oh, no, sorry. We're going over to Edward Beckham. And he asks, have you been watching the World Championships? Good to see a few goals from the Penguins players. And now he said, Edward said he has booked a trip to Prague next Sunday through Tuesday. He got tickets to see Switzerland and Canada and Finland and Denmark. Would love to have seen the United States or Sweden, but they are both playing in Ostrava.
Well, super jealous. Booking
Yeah.
a flight over to Prague.
Actually, if you're jealous of this, wait until you hear a question or more of a statement that he has coming on Thursday when we talk about where he likes to vacation. So if you're jealous of him going to Prague, wait until you hear about where he likes to vacation in his free time. But go ahead and you can go on from here.
I can only imagine, but Prague next Sunday must be nice. Watching World Championships games, I have not. I was telling Robbie I've been pretty busy last few days or whatever, which the tournament pretty much just started. The only thing that I've been tracking on them is how I've been tracking the U.S. and a little bit. I saw Nedeljkovic not looking too good.
Not a great day for Nedeljkovic or Alex Nedeljkovic today.
And a lot of wondering if that's going to affect maybe his next contract or whatever. He's playing not like he was down the stretch with the Penguins where he was being pretty much wheeled out there and propped up as best as they could.
Yeah.
He's playing lesser competition, not having a good you wonder though, is he out that maybe they're kind of on vacation mode playing hockey. Maybe he's having a few beers every night. He also might just be completely taxed still from trying to get those Penguins into the playoffs, playing stellar hockey down the stretch. That's really the only thing I've been tracking too much is Team USA. I did see Bedard's having a good time out there, scoring goals like he does, Bunting on the board as well.
Cool.
So I think just to be totally transparent here, I think once it gets more into like elimination games, that's when I will probably start circling some games to watch. I really want to check out Team Sweden. I love the Swedes and I love the hockey that they play. I want to see Carlson's captaining that team, so
he is. Yep.
I'm happy with the personnel that's over there playing. You have a lot of bigger names this year, so compared to maybe some of the years during the COVID and whatnot, a little bit more high profile players over there. Elimination games start coming around. I'll be tuning into those for sure. But yeah, checking every morning. I check and see who's having a good game, who's having a bad game out there. What about you, Robbie? You paying attention to any IIHF games?
Yeah, I watched the game on Saturday. The United States played Germany. Pretty one-sided affair in that one. They won, I think it was 6-1. Some guys I've never heard of. A lot of big names, though, for the United States. They lost today in overtime to Slovakia. Brady Tkachuk scored an absolute worldie. If you get a chance to look it up and watch the replay, an absolute unbelievable goal he scored today. And it's definitely a different vibe than when you're watching the Stanley Cup playoffs. There's not as much urgency, I guess you could say. Again, the game, it's on a bigger rink, so it is more wide open. So it's not quite as tight. There's a lot more space and a lot more offense, definitely, for sure. But some teams are clearly your favorites and some teams are clearly overmatched. But overall, yeah, I mean, it's hockey. Well, you can't complain too much.
I saw the score of Finland versus the UK.
And I didn't even see what was it.
8-0.
Yeah, definitely a some overmatched teams, but overall, hockey's hockey.
Hockey's hockey, and man, if you're in Europe or like. It's a little bit different for here in the U.S., but like if you're over in Europe and you love hockey, but your country doesn't necessarily have that much of a history of professional hockey players coming out of your country, it's still so sick. Like Robbie, you have to admit, like watching your players that play professionally in UK, even though they got waxed by Finland. I mean, Finland has a lot of NHL history.
Yep.
A lot of history in the NHL with superstars, great players coming out of Finland.
Agreed.
UK, not so much. But it's even if you're getting waxed, it's awesome to support your country. Watch the guys you watch in your professional ranked leagues there compete against superstars or like superstars, NHL caliber players. It's still awesome. If you love hockey, a tournament like this, especially for those European countries, is awesome. We can clown all we want on maybe some of the mismatch, but ultimately, it's great for the game. It's great for those countries and the fans within those countries.
Absolutely.
Quickly though, dude, have you ever heard of that guy? I think his name was Tony Hand.
No, I can't say I have.
He was drafted by the Oilers, and I think in internationally or something, he's better than Gretzky. Like he has more goals and points than Gretzky. He was drafted by the Oilers. Wayne Gretzky said he was one of the best hockey players he's ever seen play, but he left the NHL because he got homesick and he just played in Europe, in the UK. But I think he holds some insane records over there, and I believe I could be wrong, but I want to say he's from the UK. And internationally holds all these records, but he almost was part of those Oilers dynasties. Like they needed another superstar, but I've heard he's a legend over there.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
Oh, interesting.
Just a little tidbit for you. All right. I think this is let's see. Is this one mine?
No, this one's you asked me.
Yeah. Okay. I
Oh
think is
yeah.
this one from Andreas?
Yes.
Do you listen to any hockey podcasts or watch any YouTube channels?
I listen to some. I listen to the Locked On Penguins podcast with Hunter and Pat. They have a YouTube channel as well, but I
Our
usually just
rivals.
our rivals. Yes. Generally, I just watch it or I listen to it on Spotify, but they do have a YouTube channel as well. I don't do it as frequently as I used to, but there's the Puck Soup podcast, which is it's a national one. The new one that came out this year, it's more of a YouTube show. It's called What Chaos with Pete Blackburn and DJ Bean. They are from Boston, so they are Bruins fans, but they interview people from all over the hockey world. They just had the announcer for the Florida Panthers on today, talking about that series. They've interviewed players, especially a lot of younger players, which I think is really cool to kind of get their view about how the game is changing from their point of view, how it's changed to their lifetime, um, who they watched growing up, and stuff like that. So that I find very interesting as well. So check them out. I mean, if there's something interesting, I'll watch clips of different podcasts, but not a lot of full podcasts outside of Penguin centric one or one that I find the host entertaining.
No spitting chicklets?
Occasionally, especially if they have an interview that I enjoy, especially if it's a Penguin centered interview. I watch a lot of highlights of theirs, but sometimes I get a backlog of them. And the problem with the hockey podcast is if you get a backlog of a couple weeks, then most of it's out of date unless it's a cool interview or something like that. So
Yeah, they're kind of like the Joe Rogan of of hockey podcasts now, where I think
I guess
a lot
they're
of people.
they're Barstool. So
Are you not a Barstool fan?
I mean I don't mind. There's stuff on Barstool I don't like because I think it's completely jumped the shark. But there's a lot of Barstool stuff that I also do like, and they're one of them. There's some Barstool stuff I like. I don't necessarily fully on hate Barstool. I just think a lot of their content is geared toward people college kids, yes, and like in college, like
hooligans.
yeah. So like Barstool really was becoming something when I was in high school, which is like 2010, 2000 or college, sorry, 2010, 2011. And someone that was actually from New York turned me on to it that I knew from college. And that's kind of where I got my feet wet with them. And it's completely college entertainment, especially back then. And it's kind of, I mean, they've obviously branched out and got massive, but there's still a lot of that college atmosphere. Now they do like events as the whole company. Like they have a giant mini golf event that they set up in one of their offices. That is it's actually really entertaining.
It's good.
Some of them are absolutely terrible, but some of them are like take it very seriously and are very good mini golfers. It's extremely entertaining. There's some podcasts I think that I lose brain cells while listening to them, but others I actually find generally informative. But my only thing that I don't really care for is, and again, they do it because again they're a business, they need to make money. They lean a little too much into the sports gambling for my taste. It just for me that's not my vibe, so that can kind of ruin it for me. But I do like some of their content, and Spittin' Chicklets is one of them. I know they did that golf. It was Biz, Whitney, I believe McKinnon and Crosby. They did a whole YouTube video. A couple might have been like 2 or 3 years ago. And it's just great because it's one of the few times you see Crosby kind of break out of that shell a little bit. Again, he's friend with Biz. He played with Biz and Whitney. So like he's comfortable with them. And then McKinnon, obviously. I thought that was great because Crosby's like a legitimately good golfer. And it's really, really good because the other guys are not. So that I found very entertaining. And I like more of the long form stuff as well when they do videos like that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, totally. They do a really good job of really bringing out personalities, and they've gotten some big names that you probably wouldn't otherwise hear their real true personality come out. I listen to Spittin' Chicklets, not so much, not as much as I used to. They're just, I don't know. They're great. They do a really good job. They do a lot for hockey, and hockey fans they have a totally different experience than a decade ago because of Spittin' Chicklets. But I listen to this will sound bad, but it's like I listen to TSN Overdrive with the folks up there in Toronto.
Okay.
It's just entertaining to me because they talk about just a fragile fan base, and like even their talking heads up there that are supposed to be given the facts and maybe have like maybe a little bit more non-biased. I mean, those guys get sucked in just as bad as the fans do, and I just love hearing the turmoil. I love hearing. It's especially interesting from TSN Overdrive guys now because Dubas is in Pittsburgh. And for years, a lot of those guys have been just crying for Sidney Crosby to get out of Pittsburgh. But then Dubas jumped ship to come to Pittsburgh and be with Crosby.
Yeah.
And they will be talking about something totally... they'll be talking about their own general manager. And you'll just hear one of them be, wonder what Dubas is doing down in Pittsburgh this offseason. They can't help but just ricochet shots. And I love hearing it because I'm like, you guys are so mad. You guys are so upset all the time about Dubas and Toronto, Crimea River all the time. So it's probably not good for my mental health to listen to that all the time, but I get a kick out of it. And sometimes they have cool guests on. Like the one thing with TSN, they get a lot of older players on because two of the guys, Jamie McLennan and Jeff O'Neill, played professionally. They get Chris Pronger on a lot. They get Wendell Clark on. Jason Strudwick, just some older blue collar players hop on a lot with that. And I love hearing them, and I love hearing them give their takes on the league. They ask some pretty, Toronto media, they're not afraid to ask hard hitting questions. Yeah. I appreciate that. So it's good journalism, I think. There's this other podcast called Missing Curfew with, remember Scotty Upshaw?
Yep.
Scotty Upshaw and Shane O'Brien. Former Canuck. I forget who else he played for. He was never really too much on my radar. Scotty Upshaw played for the Flyers and stuff. He had an awesome tilt with Tyler Kennedy. Listen to those guys sometimes. So, anyways.
All right. Sticking with Andreas here. When will someone do something about Jacob Trouba? First, he tries to decapitate Martin Necas. Now he tries to chicken wing Evgeny Kuznetsov after scoring.
I don't know. I would love someone to do something about it. I love when I love when a Tom Wilson has to answer the bell. I'd put Trouba kind of in that Tom Wilson category.
Yeah.
I love seeing, those guys have to actually, instead of being the instigator, someone coming up to them. I remember when, who was it? Someone got absolutely it was Oscar Sundqvist when he was with the Blues. He got concussed really bad. Maybe something severe happened from a cheap shot from Tom Wilson. And then the Wild were playing St. Louis, and Marcus Foligno lined up with Oscar Sundqvist, and he just said to him, I'm going to get Tom for you. That was bullshit. I'm going to get Tom. And then the next time that Minnesota played Washington, Marcus Foligno went Tom Wilson and absolutely gave him a rough ride. Yeah. I love that kind of stuff. So as far as Jacob Trouba, there's just not a lot of guys. Jacob Trouba's massive, and he's not really known for fighting. He's more known for his massive hits. But I'd love it if somebody got him. Wouldn't you, Robbie? Like that's especially when you see the bully have to pay the price eventually. I'm all for it. Who would do that? I'm not totally sure. Especially in this playoffs right now with the Canes, they don't really have anybody that can just. I know Tony DeAngelo would probably fight just about anybody, but he's not the height and weight difference isn't quite favorable for him. You'd think that if New York does move on, which it kind of looks like it is, there's a lot of tough guys on Florida, and there's some tough customers on Boston as well if they were to move on. That would have no problem. Patrick Maroon, Trent Frederick. The Florida guys don't necessarily have one mutant that can take care of all of them, but Sam Bennett's a prick. Yeah. Matthew Tkachuk's a prick. Ryan Lomberg's, he'll take your head off. They don't have Gudis anymore, which is a shame, but Yeah, they just got a bunch of guys that can really, they'll stick you, they'll poke you, they'll trip you, they'll slash you, and on the hands, they're all a bunch of. I've heard them called a pack of coyotes. That they'll
Yep.
get under your skin. So
Oh yeah.
we'd all love to see, especially considering the scarring from that series a few years ago with the Penguins and what he did to Sid. Retribution is needed. Let's see. I think this is the last question.
Yep.
Brian doesn't ride the pine. Let's be clear. No sub carrier will do my route better than me. It's a pain in the neck when you're gone for a few weeks and come back to having to clean your route up. While I'm clearing things up, I do have a vehicle for work.
Well, I mean, that's some confidence from Brian to be able to like step up there and say, "Listen, nobody can do it better than me." I mean, that's the confidence to be able to do your job. And that was the Penguins mantra a few years ago: "Do your job." And sounds like Brian took that to heart. Good thing you have a vehicle. I'm assuming it's one of them little postal trucks, the little white ones.
The ones from World War II.
Yeah, the ones that I want to steal. Because they look like they'd be fun to drive around.
Dude,
So
totally.
Brian, if yours ever goes missing, I'm not going to tell you where I live.
It's in Johnstown.
It's in Johnstown. The best you can do is search the area. But by that time I'll have it stripped and painted, and you won't be able to do anything about it. I'm sure that I'm sure that mail carriers have a strict routine that they get into, and when someone screws it up, when they're on vacation or have to miss time and somebody has to fill in, that probably gets extremely frustrating and annoying, especially when you have to do things a certain way for 300 and let's say 350 days a year, or something like that, that you do it. But yeah, I mean, Brian I don't know, like, respect the mail carriers. Maybe they should get their own day or their own month, for what
There
they
probably
do.
already is one.
Probably is. There's a holiday for everything. So, what they should do, Brian, is go back to the Pony Express and give you a horse instead. Because I would pay to see Brian riding a horse around his mail route, slinging mail into mailboxes, up and down the street. That would be super fun. I'm sure Brian would prefer not riding a horse, but it's my tax dollars, so I can say what they do. So I want to see them give Brian a horse for like a week and just go back to the old Pony Express days, to deliver the mail.
Be sick if he could whip a golf cart. Like,
That would be cool.
If his route is walkable, he doesn't necessarily need the little World War II vehicle. But what
Yeah.
if, like, he could just whip a U.S. Postal Service branded golf cart?
Yeah, it just has like some windows or something in case it's raining. He can sit in there a little bit, but maybe like a little radio. But we're glad to have Brian back. He was gone the past two mailbags, so it's good to have Brian back, as well as, I mean, Andreas and Edward have been kind of filling in the gaps in the meantime. So we've received no questions from Garrett yet, and I thought we would. So let's see if he listens to this podcast and asks a question for next week. So
He won't.
If
He's
he
ninja,
won't,
ninja dust.
he's ninja dust. He is fighting off shin splints, as we know.
Oh yeah.
But Brian has no sympathy, and I think he has a question coming or a comment on that will be in Thursday's part 2. So,
Garrett's on the trolley listening to Creed or whatever his favorite band is.
yeah, absolutely. But all right, that is part 1 of this week's mailbag. Part 2 will come to you later in the week, like always. Yeah, thank you guys for getting your questions in again. And Snail, do you have anything do you want to say before we wrap up shop for this episode?
It is Monday, May 13th. It is
Is.
approximately 3:30 Pacific Standard Time, so 6:30, I think, Eastern Standard Time. The Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Rangers are about to play Game 5. It's not looking good, but I'll be watching that game intently. Go Canes. Jake Gensel's been playing some great
He
hockey.
has, yes. Jake Gensel, I think I saw a stat today that he has recorded a point in every game he's played against the Rangers in the playoffs.
Only him and Bobby Orr.
Yeah, That's good company.
Insane company.
Yeah.
Good for him. Yeah, I guess we'll see how this series wraps up, but man, does Jake Gensel know how to perform in the postseason?
He certainly does. He certainly does. All right. That does it for part 1 of this week's mailbag. We'll be back later this week with part 2. Until then, I'm Snail. I'm not Snail. I'm Robbie, joined by Snail. We will talk to you guys later this week.